So we have never discussed about significators in astrological birth chart. Like certain planets are responsible for certain things, no matter what house they're placed in. Okay, so that's what signifies significators. I'll give you an example. Let's say Mercury is in the third house, or Mercury is the lord of the third house. Let's say it's Gemini. Okay, and Mercury's excelled, or Mercury's placed in Gemini in the third house. Does this mean this person is very courageous? Because third house represents courage. Not necessarily. This third house also represents communication, media, and intelligence of a person. So third house may actually right now only represents that this person is a very good communicator, is a very good salesman. He has very talkative siblings, or he may be very talkative with his siblings and friends and nearby neighbors and family members. But doesn't mean this person is courageous. They can be completely cowards. But in order to see this, if this person is really a courageous person, you look at the condition of Mars, because Mars is the significator of the third house, which represents courage. Whereas Mars is a soldier. A soldier is the one who has courage. So this is why each house has their own significator. So if you're judging a house, you don't only judge that house by the planet that it rules, or the planet that it sits in, or the nakshatra that planet sits in. You also look at the karka, the significator of that house. Karka is the same thing, the significator. Okay, so let's go over all the significators of all the houses. Okay, so as you see in this chart, it's kind of like multi-shaded chart. And the reason for that is where you see the rising sign, that is where the sun rises from. And I wrote that sunrise. So this is like around 6 o'clock. Okay, so sun rises and it moves clockwise. So the 12th house that you see is kind of like the time between 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And then the 11th house is the time from 10:30 to 11:30 time. And then the 10th house, which is the afternoon, that happens between 11:45 and 1:30. That's where the sun is the brightest. Okay, and then it moves. The 9th house represents the time of between 2 o'clock to 3:45. And then the 8th house represents the time from 3:45 all the way to 5:30. And then the 7th house is the time when the sun is setting, which is around 5:45 to 6:45. Okay, so the sun sets. Then it comes to the 6th house. 6th house, which is around the time like 7:30 to 8:45. Then the 5th house is from 8:45 to 10:30. Then the 4th house, which represents midnight, is from 10:30 all the way to 12:45. Then 3rd house is a time from 12:45 to 2:30 through 2:35. And then where you see a little bit of light coming, that is the time between 3:45 to 5:30, where the sun is just about to rise. And then obviously you have the rising sign. Then it comes back to the first house, which is where it really shows up on your horizon. So these are the 12 houses. Now the karka, the significators of each house, is what we're going to go over now. So the first house, the rising sign that you see, the significator of that house, this house represents your body. This represents your personality and how the vitality of your body. And the significator of this is sun. So the sun is represents how healthy or how weak the body is going to be. So when you want to judge the fact how somebody's body is going to be, like health wise or personality, you also want to look at where sun is placed. No matter what sign is rising, who is the lord of the first house in your birth chart, but always look at the sun. Second house represents wealth, speech, family wealth. It represents hoarded wealth, or accumulated of jewelry, or anything that represents an asset. And so this is represented by Jupiter. Then comes the 3rd house, which represents siblings and courage and your media and your mental capacity, mental ability to communicate is represented by Mars, especially the courage part. So wherever Mars is located, you want to look at the fact how Mars is placed, even if you're going to judge this from, who's the Lord of the third house in your birth chart. You want to make sure that you see where Mars is placed, because that is the significator of the third house. Then fourth house represents mother, nourishment, home, vehicles, conveniency, happiness, mother's nourishment. This comes from Moon and Venus, because this is a midnight time and Moon is the brightest thing up in the sky along with the Venus. Okay, so Venus and Moon are the brightest star or planet out in the sky. Then the fifth house represents children, intelligence, your academic education, entertainment, cinema, drama. The significator of this house is Jupiter again. So if you want to know how, if you're going to have children or not, don't just look at the Lord of the fifth house, but also make sure you're looking at how Jupiter is placed. Sixth house represents diseases, enemies, litigations. Okay, so this house is obviously represented by Mars and Saturn, the two of the crude planets, harsh planets, malefic planets. And then the seventh house represents your partner, business partner, legal partner, marriage, husband, wife. Okay, and so the significator of the seventh house for men is Venus, for women is Jupiter. So whoever rules the seventh house in your birth chart, you also want to make sure that if you're a female, you're looking at Jupiter's position and how well Jupiter is placed in your chart. And if you're a guy, you want to see how well is Venus placed in your chart. The next is the house of longevity. It represents joint assets with your wife and represents your in-laws, the family of the in-laws. Because second house represents your own family, so directly opposite to second house is the eighth house, which is your wife's family. House of death and rebirth. Some people fall and rise in life. House of occult, house of dark knowledge, hidden underground things that are hidden from the world. This is controlled by Saturn. And then ninth house is long distance travel. It's your teachers, university teachers. People also say this is the house of father because your first teacher is the father, but that's really not the case. Ninth house is really the higher education, like PhD, master's degree, your university professors, your gurus. And the significator for that, again, is Jupiter. And this is also represents your luck, ninth house. How lucky are you going to be in this life? So if you're going to judge this by the Lord of the ninth house, you might also want to look at Jupiter as well. Because even though the ninth house might be well placed, but if Jupiter is not well placed, then it will have a neutral result. 10th house, the afternoon time where the sun is the brightest, represents your father, your relationship with the father, your career, your image into the world. This is represented by, this is the significator of this house is Sun, Mercury, and Saturn. Okay? So no matter if Mars is your Lord of the 10th house, you want to make sure these other three planets are in good condition in order for you to get your dream career that you're looking for. 11th house, gains of money, all sorts of gains. Okay? Represents your friend circle, your network circle, professional network circle, source of gains. That again is controlled by Jupiter. So you see how important Jupiter is in one's life. It represents family wealth, children, education, higher education, and incoming gains. Okay? Then 12th house is the final house for the soul to rest. That is a house represents jails, isolation, asylums, represents foreign lands, represents donations, spiritual donations, spirituality, the imagination, the subconscious mind, represents also loss of money as well. So these things are now controlled by Saturn again. Okay? So, especially in Bhrigunari Jyotish, they give very strong emphasis on Jupiter and Saturn because, Saturn and Jupiter are really controlling majority of the houses, So these are the planets that are the significator of the houses as I showed you. And so no matter where any of these planets are placed in, so if you want to know if your, let's say, fifth house is excelled, Mercury is there in the Virgo. Does that mean this person will have kids for sure? No. For that, you have to check Jupiter. Is Jupiter well placed? Is Jupiter in a good sign or enemy sign? Is Jupiter excelled or debilitated? What nakshatra Jupiter is sitting in? Okay, so this is how you check all these things. So I hope this helped. If you're new to my channel, subscribe above. And if you want to know more about astrology and its secrets, check out my link below. Check out my book, The Astrology at the Speed of Light. It'll help you a lot. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.